Alright guys, in this video I'll be talking about the 5 ways that NEO can get profitable. And each one of these 5 ways, they're essentially doing some of it to some extent, alright? And they're working on all of these. So you could consider that all of them are ways that they're getting profitable and not just individual scenarios, alright? So the first one is obviously the sub-brand. With the new main brand, the vehicles are quite expensive. It's not affordable. It is worth it. It is worth every penny, but it's not affordable. Not everybody can get that money to have the budget to buy a Neo. So, it's very reasonable to expect not fantastic deliveries. And a lot of people are still reminiscent of gasoline, so they would choose these EREV hybrids. So, with the new main brand, we can expect deliveries to just be all right. But, of course, with the sub-brand, you're making battery swap much more accessible. And I think, in my personal opinion, it's not the sub-brand, Envo sub-brand, that's going to really make NEO profitable by selling cars, but the sub-brand, the Firefly sub-brand, all right? That brand priced 100K to 200K RMB, which is going to be like around 20,000 US dollars, all right? So not too expensive, more like 15,000 to 25,000 US dollars. That price range, that is a sweet spot. That's going to be accessible by a lot of people. And you have battery swap. And here in China, most taxi cars prefer battery swap, and taxi cars, they never drive like super expensive cars. So most of them will have cheaper cars, and that car will be perfect for taxis. It will be absolutely perfect. So you might see commercial orders as well. So a lot of you guys have been asking, Mr. P, why hasn't NEO been getting those taxi orders here in China? Well, of course, those cars, NEOs, are very expensive. It's unreasonable to drive it as a taxi. The depreciation alone is much more than the revenue that you'll ever generate. So it's just, it just doesn't make sense, but it does make sense for the sub brand here in China. So I think with the sub brand, they're really going to sell a lot of cars. And my personal expectations with the Envo sub brand, you're probably going to see deliveries double, triple. So probably go into the 20,000, 30,000 range in terms of deliveries per month. And then with the sub brand, possibly to like 50,000 to 100,000 vehicles per month. Very, very possible, right? Those are some of the numbers that BYD is pulling in. So NEO's vehicle will actually be a huge competitor compared to BYD with those really cheap, vehicles that BYD is putting out. NEO's got that as well, and you got battery swap. So it's just going to be a no-brainer if you just want a daily commuting vehicle. All right, so that's the first path to profitability, the sub brand. All right, the second path to profitability is, of course, the energy business, charging and swapping. Now, I want to preface this by saying charging is already profitable for NEO. Their charging prices aren't exactly cheap, but people are still charging at NEO's chargers because it's reliable and accessible at a lot of remote places. So the charging business is doing quite well, profitable, but the swapping business won't be profitable until maybe like 3 years out. All right, partially because a lot of NEOs still get free battery swap. They removed it, but then they're giving away free swap vouchers. So that still means that you're not getting a lot of money from battery swap. Right now, if you buy a car right now with BAS, you get 96 swap vouchers. Let that sink in. I have only swapped like 120 times with 3-year ownership of my car. So that's enough for 2 years of free driving, and you don't have to pay anything for battery swap. And that's just insane, right? You get 36 swap vouchers by just buying the car, and then 60 if you choose BAS. So crazy. But NEO CEO has said that it only takes about 60 swaps per day for a swap station to break even. So and the number of swaps have really been going up as well recently. But keep in mind that a lot of people are still swapping for free, and until these swap vouchers get used up down the line, 2 or 3 years later, that's when we can really expect swapping to be profitable, all right, when everybody's paying for swaps. But of course, NEO owners, early adopters like us, like me, we'll never be paying for swap. We get unlimited free battery swap for life. That's that. Number 3 is, of course, grid stabilization. Now, grid stabilization, they're already doing that with 370 something swap stations in the southern part of China. They're also doing it with the one swap station in Denmark. So it's a very easy business. And also, it's not just that, selling the power back to the grid, but they also sell the power to nearby charging stations. So instead of selling the power to the grid, they have that electricity and they can sell it while charging, use that electricity while charging cars that are paying for the chargers. So that's actually a very interesting way. And actually, once they got everything set up, it's just a free income basically. It doesn't really cost them anything. It doesn't really, have any manual labor attached to it or cost of sales. It's just pure profit. And NIO's earning quite some good money from that as well. All right, and it's already happening. All right, and they just gotta open it, make it available for more swap stations for grid stabilization, and that's gonna be just like free income. Yeah, so absolutely incredible. That does add up. It's not gonna be as much as selling a vehicle, selling a car. That revenue is a lot higher than the revenue you get from selling electricity, making the difference between night and day. But this is, of course, free money, right? It's free money. You get it every day, 24/7, 365 days of the year. And everybody uses electricity, so it's you're never going to see a situation where this doesn't earn money. Guaranteed profit every day. Number 4 is, of course, these partnerships. Now, these partnerships entail that they use NIO's sub-brand battery pack, the Alps battery pack, Envoy battery pack, and they'll be sharing some of the swap stations as well. So that means, NIO's selling the battery pack to them. You got some money exchanged right there, and you also got partnership fees and then licensing fees to use some of NIO's patents. And of course, the partners will build some of these swap stations, and that will be quite interesting because the CFO said this year that most of the swap stations will be public swap stations built by partners, and that might also mean that instead of NIO spending some money to build those swap stations, actually a lot of money to build those swap stations, the partners are putting in money to build those swap stations, buying the parts from NIO, so NIO gets money instead of spending money. That's something to think about. And also operating a swap station, NIO will operate those swap stations, so you can expect NIO to get a little bit of money from that as well, and also revenue from the battery swaps. Those battery swaps generate some revenue. Now, of course, those partner brands will get most of the revenue, but NIO will get a sliver of that as well. So it's just all money coming into NIO's pockets. Very, very good. Number 5 is a more interesting one, and that's technology licensing. Recently, NIO came out with the new chip, the Shenji chip NX something 931 or something. God chip, God muscle, God brain. That's what you can call it. And it's essentially 4 Orin X chips, the processing power of 4 Orin X chips. And that's a very, very good competitive advantage that NIO has. And if NIO chooses to license that out, they can license that out with their autonomous driving solution, like what Huawei does. Huawei licensed out that technology for car brands to use. So NIO could do that as well. One interesting thing is, of course, a lot of companies like Zeekr and Xpeng, Li Auto, they're all adopting NVIDIA's Thor chip, which is actually 2 times more processing power than NIO's chip. But you can expect that chip to be a lot more expensive than 2 times more expensive than NIO's chip. And also, think about it this way. If NIO were to buy that chip, that would actually be a big expense. It would be very expensive to buy that chip, whereas they built their own chip, designed their own chip, it would be much cheaper for them to just manufacture that chip, manufacture 2 of those chips, than to buy one of NVIDIA's Thor chip. So NIO's R&D expenses, the CEO has always said the whole point of R&D and spending a lot of R&D to make it themselves, and then also to increase margins, right? And that's what you're seeing. And also, of course, if they choose to license this out, that would be a very good solution for them to get a lot of extra revenue. What do you guys think about these 5 ways to profitability? They're pretty much doing all 5 of them. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.